What's up, YouTube guys and gals? The video I've been wanting to make for a long time is finally here, but it's raining today, so we'll do our commentary in here in the shop in the dry. But I wanted to just give you a follow-up on the 2010 F-250 Cummins swap. Been several weeks since I posted a video, and I ran into some issues and didn't realize what was causing it. Just a running issue. It was not running right at all, and so it took quite some time to get an OBD2 port functioning and find out what the codes were, and then trace everything down and get the issues fixed. So it ended up being a problem with the crank sensor circuit, and I had changed the crank sensor. Once I found the code, I changed it, and didn't cure the problem, and so I ended up getting into the harness and found a bad place in the harness, got that fixed, and got the truck running right. And so now it's all together, everything's running. Just a quick backstory. Hopefully this rain will stop. There's a few things I was going to show you while I was talking, but if not, we can do that later. So backstory on the truck. I bought this truck about a year and a half ago out of Texas. It's a rust-free truck. Had 200. It has 224 now. It had just over 200 when I bought it, and we daily drove the truck. Didn't use it hard. It ran great. Did have some blow-by on the 6.4 engine, but no more than what you would expect on a 6.4 with some miles. It did great on daily driving, not a lot of issues, but we have a camper that we pull, that fifth wheel there, and we had hooked it up and took it camping last year, and where we live, getting back home, there's some really hard grades, about 7 or 8%, maybe more than that. And it's about 8 or 10 miles up through there, and you kind of on grade, pulling grade and then coasting and pulling grade and coasting and whatnot. So on the trip home, we were pulling the camper, and the first hard pull, it did fine, no issues. I had gauges on the thing, SCT, watching everything, had alarms set for any issues, and had no issues, no problems, no nothing. And we started pulling up the grade, and the first pull, it pulled really good. And then the second pull, I noticed a lot of smoke coming out from under somewhere on the right side, the passenger side front of the truck. And so I pulled over, and it had blowed oil out of the air filter area. And it, come to find out, just had a massive amount of blow-by by that time. And while I had the hood up, the truck went, started skipping, missing. And so I was in a really bad place, and just across the road, maybe a quarter mile up the road, there's a really good paved pull-off. So I managed to get the truck and the camper over there, unhooked everything, got a friend of mine to come with a trailer, brought my other truck back and pulled the camper home, and then brought the truck home on his trailer. Got it here, got the checking, got a massive amount of blow-by, bad miss in it, everything else. And I've heard that, 6.4s are bad to crack pistons and different things like that. So I called a couple of places to see about getting a long block built for it. And the money just was a tremendous amount of money to try to rebuild the 6.4. I mean, if you just do a standard rebuild and use the cheapest possible parts, you're talking about several $1,000s, plus machine work, plus time and labor and all that. So one gentleman I called, he's very, very knowledgeable on 6.4s, does a lot of work with them, and they race them, sled pull them, daily drive them, use them, work them, and build engines, for the public. And so I called him, and I said, how much would it cost to fix this engine so that it would never give me any issues again, any catastrophic mechanical issues? And he said probably around $15,000, and you'd want to update your fuel system with it. So I figured we were looking at close to 20 by the time I did the fuel system. And if I, I of course wouldn't pay myself to put the engine in, but if you considered labor. So I decided to swap it. So I have not kept tabs on this. I have a rough number in my mind, but I wouldn't mention that number just because I haven't kept tabs and I don't know exactly how much I've spent. I can tell you I scored the 24 valve Cummins off of eBay, shipped to my door for, I believe it was $1,800, and it's a 140,000 mile engine. Then of course the swap parts and things like that, and I wouldn't disclose those numbers because I don't want the people that I bought it from, I don't want them, they may need to alter their price, and I don't want anybody thinking that they got a good or bad deal one way or the other. It doesn't matter. So but altogether, it was still way cheaper, probably half the price, maybe less, of trying to fix the 6.4. And I'm okay with that. I'm good. And I've lovingly named this truck Frank, after Frankenstein. And I will probably have a tag made for it to that effect, or maybe some stickers or something like that. But the truck's back together. It's running. Everything's done. There may be a few little miscellaneous things. I had an oil leak that I think I have fixed, but with the rain, I'm not going to try to get in there and see. I don't see any obvious leaks, but it wasn't a very large leak, so it might be hard to see anyway. You can check that out later. I want to do a little bit of update to the wiring I did. It's all good. It's safe. It's drivable, dependable, but just it's not very cosmetically pleasing. So we'll probably update that at some point. So what I wanted to do is tell you what I built, what I did on this truck. It's a 99 5.9 Cummins, as I said, 140,000 mile motor. It has 150 horsepower injectors in it from DAP. It has a compound turbo setup that I put together. It has an 03 to, I believe, 05 HE351 turbocharger for the low or the high pressure turbo, and then it has a S369 mounted up on top of the manifold, or above the manifold rather. That is the low pressure turbo. It has Quadzilla iQuad, and not sure how I feel about that yet. Going to mess with the tunes a little bit. I do like the ability to monitor a lot of different things, so that much is good. And I like the defuel settings in case something does get out of hand. And beyond that, that's the modifications to it. One other modification. I initially ran this truck off of the Ford lift pump, fuel lift pump. And that I've heard of people say that works, and I know people who run them. I've read a lot on the forums where people run those and have good luck, but I've also read where it's probably not the ideal circumstance. So I upgraded to a fast fuel lift pump, and again, I was hoping this rain would stop and I could show you some of this stuff. Maybe we'll do that in a later video. I may go back and just do individual videos of each part if anybody would like to see them, or if you have questions about what I did or how I did it. But it does have a fast fuel lift pump, and that eliminates, of course, the Cummins lift pump and the Cummins engine mounted fuel filter in favor of the two filters on the fast titanium pump. So that's the extent of the modifications on the truck as far as power modifications. There are many other modifications as far as fabrication, getting that engine in there and getting everything done. I ordered several adapter pieces to facilitate putting that Cummins in front of the 5R110 engine. Of course, there's tuning involved, custom tuning for the transmission. I have a friend of mine took care of that for me. And so as far as if you would like to know on any of these parts where they came from, the gentleman that I've got it, or gentlemen gentlemen that I have gotten them from are individuals just like me and you. They're not big companies, and they make a magnificent parts that work well. Had no issues with any of the parts at all. Put them on, bolted them up, tightened them down, moved on. And they're substantially more reasonably priced than a lot of the bigger names. So my advice to you would be this, and again, I could, if you're needing to know specifics, I'll be glad to get you links to whatever information that I can. But if you are considering a swap, I highly recommend that you would go on Facebook and go to one of the Cummins pages, Fummins. And in particular, there's one called Cummins Tech, and they have a lot of traffic there, a lot of questions being asked and answers given, a lot of references to where your parts come from and who to speak to about getting different things done. So that would be a very good resource for you. And also you can look on YouTube, and there's one gentleman, I believe the channel is Pop's Freebird Report. But if you go on there and look up Cummins Swap or Cummins Swap, you will no doubt come across his series where he did a 12-valve Cummins from the point of taking the engine completely apart, rebuilding everything, I believe. Every detail of that, every detail of putting it in the truck, even down to cruise control. I believe I recall that he did a cruise control video. And his swap and information is very successful, because the last video I saw, he had hooked up to his camper. He and his wife, I believe they're retired, and had drove 700 miles to their wintertime camping spot. So you could check that out as well. But as far as the truck goes, everything's working really good now. I feel very confident that I am very well schooled in the workings of a 24-valve Cummins. I've had injectors out several times, had the pump, swap the pump, injection pump, adjusted the valves a couple times, and many other things trying to find my problem, and it ended up being that wiring harness. So, but everything's in there. It's all working. It has a functioning OBD2 port on the Cummins engine, and then the OBD2 port in the truck still works with all the Ford stuff. Then of course it monitors, have the SCT monitoring several parameters, and then also the Quadzilla. It monitors several parameters. Truck does have an exhaust brake, and it also has an exhaust cutout. The exhaust brake needs some adjustment, but I won't do that until the weather changes a little bit, warms up, dries out. But we can definitely do that. Won't be a problem. And it's set up to tow. I think everything will work good. All the numbers look great today. Took it for the first official test drive for any length of miles, and went about 25 or 30 miles, got some fuel and come back. 25-mile round trip. Got some fuel, come back. Everything seems fine, and so I'm sure there'll be some little odds and ends here and there, but it is together and functioning. So here's what I wanted to say. I said all that to say this. If you guys are interested in any information on the truck, if you need to know something, if you want to ask a question, if you need to know where to get parts, I'll be glad to tell you anything that I ran into on the swap. Somebody asked the question, is it worth it? If you have a 6.4 truck that's in good shape and your engine down and catastrophically enabled, it's just sitting in the yard, and you want to keep the truck. I love this truck. I looked for this particular truck for a long time, and I'm not getting rid of the truck. And so if you're in a situation where you're going to keep the truck and it's a good truck otherwise, the Cummins swap is definitely worth it. Of course, if you weren't doing compounds or bigger injectors or all the other stuff, if you just wanted a stock running truck, it would be much easier than what I ran into. But yes, definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. the only cheaper option that I could possibly think of, if you're doing this work yourself, would be to go to the junkyard and find a running, 6.4 that you could buy for, say, $5,000, $6,000, and put in place of your non-running 6.4, and you would still have, an engine that you knew very little about, and that, is known to have some reliability issues. So I think this is a good solid platform. I do know this. I have not really laid into it all that hard, but with those injectors and those turbos, it is very dangerous to drive on a wet road. So as far as power, everything, the Cummins is very, very capable. So if you have questions, or if you want any kind of a link or whatever on what I've done, I'll be glad to get that to you. And maybe when this weather changes this week or something toward the end of the week or next weekend, I'll get some specific videos to follow this one on each individual part. I may do one on the compound turbo setup, one on the, maybe the fast fuel system, maybe one on the exhaust brake, things like that. But anyway, I may do that. We'll see. You can ask if there's something specific you want to know, then certainly do that. I will for sure do some videos later on towing with the truck, because that's what it's built to do. We will daily drive it, but I need it to pull that camper. I have, since all this happened, I have sold my flatbed truck, and so this truck is now going to have to pull that fifth wheel camper, and I have no doubt that it will. So I may do some videos and get you some videos of the temperatures and the capability and things like that. So that's the extent of this video, and if you have anything that I can help you with, please let me know, and I'll do my very best. I hope you guys have a great evening, good day. God bless you.